It is my pleasure to introduce to you our commencement speaker this evening. Steve Ballmer has been a friend for the last 4 or 5 years, and I became a friend of his through his son Sam, who today just about finished his 4 years at USC. We're close. We're close. We're going to get him through it. And a couple of interesting things about Steve that you're not going to read on Wikipedia that I think are good to note, one of which is he was the 30th employee at Microsoft. When he left, there were over 100,000. He's probably, and I think he is, the only person in the history of business to have been a president or CEO of a company with 30 employees and one with over 100,000 and everything in between. Think about that. That's continuity over a 33-year career. It's pretty special. You'll find that Steve lacks in his enthusiasm, so I'm going to try and turn the mics up because it's tough. Although if the mics go out, you'll still hear him, okay? And when Steve is finished, I just want to tell you that the other thing that we share in common is our love of family. And Steve's going to take his family and go to dinner, which is what he should do. So he's not leaving here because he's got to catch a plane or anything else. He's really leaving here to go be with family. And that, to me, is really, really an important thing. So without further ado, let's give Steve Ballmer a great welcome.
You just got to be more fired up than that. Try that one more time for me. I want to hear the class. Much better. You know, this is a big deal for me. I'm an MBA dropout, actually. This is as close as I ever got. Right here. I'm sitting on stage, listening to Jim speak, thinking, what could have been? But it's all there for all of you. Full MBAs, not pathetic, half dropouts, full degrees, graduating from one of the finest universities in the world. Congratulations to you all. I may still have to come back at some point and do that MBA. I'm going to think about it after this graduation. Jim was chatting with me a little bit about this speech. And he was saying, hey, look, you're going through kind of a weird process in your life. You've been doing the same thing for almost 34 years. And now, for the first time in a long time, you'll pick what to do next. And each and every graduate today is in a similar position. Almost all of you have had a lot of work experience. You've had a chance to think about what you like, what you don't like, what gets you fired up and passionate and energetic. And now you're making a new set of life choices. You want to go build a career. You want to feel a sense of achievement. Some of you may want to really start your own companies and build something phenomenally successful. That's great stuff, by the by. It is really great. And yet, when I talked to Jim, I said, well, look, what should I talk about? He said, why don't you think about and talk about what it means to kind of invent yourself, since I'm spending a lot of time reflecting on that process, a process that all of you are now going through. I've had a chance during my life to help invent a number of things. I have been doing sort of this mental chronicle of the history of Microsoft. By my chronicle, we're in about our 8th generation. I missed the first one. That got us to about 30 people, as Jim said, and about $2.5 million of sales. We just entered what I would call the 8th. I got a chance to kind of kick it off for a few months, and then I decided it was really the right time to hand the ball to somebody else and let them go and drive and move forward. So I thought, thank you. That must be my golf coach congratulating me, because it's the only person who's sure I'm good for business at this stage. But what it really means is I've thought a lot about kind of how you build businesses, how you build companies. I've had to build and rebuild myself, and all of you are going to go through those experiences. You're going to say, what do you like? What does it take for me to create value? How do I create value in my own life? How do I create it in my business, the business I start, the business I work for, or the not-for-profit, because we have such a wonderful representation of people here in the room today. So I want to talk just briefly about lessons learned. They're going to be too brief, too short, and too unexplained if I do a good job, because I don't want to keep you here all night. You too want to go out and have a fun time with your families. But I do want to spend just a few minutes on 6 things. For those of you who think 6 is too many for a good speech, you are right. So I encourage you to pull out your phones and go to Steve B. Microsoft on Twitter. The outline of the speech is there in case you get lost. And that's not a joke. I fit the whole thing in 140 characters, so somebody better look at that. First thing I'd say to you is the lesson is ideas matter. I talked about this a little bit. I spoke at the big commencement at USC 3 years ago. And yet, as I was really going through what I needed to say to you, I have to reinforce this notion that ideas matter. People think business is about leadership. They think it's about working hard. They think it's about a lot of things, which it is. But at the end of the day, the ideas that you have will power the organizations that you join. They will create the value. A great team, great energy, and great hard work will never make up for a bad idea. Now, bad ideas can also fall flat on the floor for a lot of other reasons. Windows and the power of the microprocessor, great idea. Great idea. And ideas matter. Even if you turn around and look at your own sort of personal lives, the idea, what you choose to do, does matter. You don't have to make a right choice, a perfect choice now as you graduate. But what you really need to do is constantly ask yourself, am I pursuing the right idea in my life, in my career, for my company? Is this really something that will create value? Because at the end of the day, if the idea is wrong, you will fail. My favorite new analogy, there's an old movie, too old for this class, called Thelma and Louise. 2 crazy gals who kind of get off the rails, and at the end of the movie, they drive off a cliff. Very charismatic in the movie, very charismatic. And I'm thinking to myself, MBA should stop and reflect on the fact that if you followed Thelma and Louise, you still died. You went off the cliff. And leadership and organization and hard work matter, but ideas matter. That's job 1. Second thing I would say, and I apologize in advance for the sports reference, but I would say get in the weight room of life. What do you do in a weight room if you're an athlete or a kind of retired senior citizen like me? You prepare. You prepare. You build new capabilities. You get stronger. You get faster. You figure out how to get leverage. And yet in your business lives, those are precisely the right messages. One of the things that I think has made Microsoft the company that it is today is that we weren't afraid to get in the weight room. In the late 80s, we had plenty of customers, investors tell us we would, quote, never be an enterprise company. Today, many people think the bulk of the $350 billion of value in Microsoft is in our enterprise business. We weren't afraid to sit there even before we had it figured out and just work to prepare, to get better, to build new capabilities. And whether we're talking about what you need to do for your startup, for the hospital that you join, or for yourself personally, you have to build new capabilities, new quickness, and new leverage. That would be my second key message to you. The third thing I would say, he says, checking his lovely phone, is you really need to learn how to tell a story, particularly with MBAs. And when I say MBAs, I'm really speaking generally to the group, but I'm being parochial because I can't come up with a general expression for MBA tonight. But I do find that a lot of people coming out of school focus a lot on the what we should do and don't spend enough time learning how to tell the story of why their idea brings value to others. The number of storytellers in the world is very, very small. I don't know what exactly I will do next in my life. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't have an idea. But I've been spending a lot of time in the weight room reading up on the U.S. government budget, healthcare costs, and debt. And I say that to people, and nobody knows what the heck I'm doing. I can't explain. I don't know. Earlier this week, I came up with a way to explain it. As CEO of Microsoft, I was responsible for signing on something called our 10Q. Every quarter, you had to publish it. And it had to tell a story of your company. You had to get up in front of analysts. I didn't do that very well, but nonetheless, I did it well. I just didn't do it very frequently. Nonetheless, you got out every quarter, you put out a statement. You explained yourself. You told the story. What's good, what's bad, what's working, what's not working. The U.S. government doesn't put out a quarterly statement. There's no regular story from our government about what's working and what's not working, where cost really is going and where it's not, what the president is trying to do. The State of the Union is a long list, and whether you like Republicans or Democrats, you still don't get a simple and succinct story. I started telling people this week I want to work from publicly available information on putting together a 10Q for the government. People said, oh, we get that. That's a story that you can start telling and people understand. You can have a brilliant idea for your startup. You've got to become a storyteller. Some of you will say, I'm not an expert at telling stories and telling yarns. You're not great public speakers. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a clear, simple, concise way to convey the value of the ideas that are in your head. I think it's one of the most underappreciated skills in business. It's one of the skills that we did talk about explicitly at Microsoft. And if I could wish you one new capability to go build, it would be the capability of storytelling. Fourth, treasure time. Everybody says that. You might think I'm talking about work-life balance, and I am. You might think I'm talking about time management, and I am. But I'm really encouraging you to just step back, if not daily, weekly, monthly, and think about your time. I went to a speech once that was given by a guy from Microsoft to a set of our business partners, and he told the story about the history of the clock and how it got invented. And I was getting very fidgety, very fidgety. I said, we need to sell these people something. We need to tell them why our product's good. We need to tell them why they're going to make a lot of money selling this product. And this guy worked for us. He just kept going about the history of the clock. He gets to the end of the story and he said, I wanted you to understand time. It's your most precious asset. I hated the speech, and here I am quoting it to you today because it made a real difference in my life. I keep a spreadsheet with a time budget, how I want to spend my time, and I manage to the budget. When you're thinking about the important things to go do in your life or in your business, you have to decide time references. When should you be patient and when you should be urgent? There's no right answer. Is a startup supposed to succeed in 60 days or in 10 years? There's no right answer to that question. There really isn't. But unless you're constantly, as leaders in the world tomorrow, questioning what is the right time frame to use in thinking about the various investments you'll do. I know the first major decision you're going to make about time, all of you will take a job. And you will have to decide how long before I know I love this. Is it 6 months? Is it a year? Do you stay after it for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? What does your career look like? You don't need to know today, but you should think about it explicitly. You should think explicitly, am I being too urgent or too patient? How do I process and really think about time? I was meeting earlier this week with a guy who I worked with in my first job out of college at Procter & Gamble on Duncan Hines brownie mix. We were sitting in the bullpen together, and I wound up doing what I did, and he's now the CEO of General Electric, actually. We used to screw around. Jeff Immelt, who runs GE, and we used to play, waste paper basketball with crumpled up papers in the afternoon on Duncan Hines brownie mix. But life's been pretty good to Jeff, too. And he had just spent a day in Silicon Valley. And we were talking about the culture in the Valley, and people were asking him, what do you think of Twitter? Is it overvalued? Is it undervalued? And Jeff and I looked at each other, and he said it before I could. Nobody's going to know for 10 years. Nobody will really know for 10 years. The time frame before you can really assess some things is far longer than you think. And I'm not making a recommendation. I'm merely asking you to please treasure your time. 5, hardcore. Be hardcore. Now, I kind of wear brand hardcore on me. I would think that would be a little bit of my reputation at Microsoft. And people say, what the heck do you mean by that? Be passionate. That's being hardcore. Be tenacious. That's being hardcore. Be optimistic about what you can achieve in your own careers, in your own lives, in your startup, in the companies that you join. Be optimistic. Be what I would call sharks. That's a dangerous thing to say, so let me explain it. Another old movie, Annie Hall. There's a great line where I think Annie Hall or somebody in the movie says, relationships, in this case between men and women, are like sharks. They move forward or they die. Hardcore people are like sharks. They move forward or they die. You have to be constantly pushing yourself to look for the next thing, do the next thing, find the next thing. Not the thing that's very different, but to ask the next question, do the next examination, be tenacious, be passionate, stay optimistic. There's a whole theme there that I think is far more fundamentally successful, a fundamental source of success for businesses and for careers than you can ever imagine. And last but not least, have fun. You're not going to have fun every minute of every day. I don't care what job you take, any job you take. I don't care how well rewarded you are. I don't care anything about that. It won't happen all the time, but you better be having fun in what you do. The truth is, a lot of success won't just come from ideas and being hardcore and being in the weight room. A lot of your success is going to come from luck. I know that was true in my case, and I know, frankly, it's the case of almost every successful entrepreneur I met in the tech business in the last 34 years. People will make it seem like it was the grand master plan in all cases of an all-knowing and all-seeing genius. That and a lot of luck is what really leads to success. So given that you're going to have a lot of luck, you better be having a lot of fun. Don't take the next job or don't do the next startup because you should. Do it because you want to. Because you can think of nothing better, more exciting, more energizing to get up every day and go do than whatever it is that you selected. Be patient and be urgent be patient when you get the first signs that it's not fun, because time must be measured. Constantly be improving yourself, because only by improving yourself will you maybe find that next idea. I'm sure there are many people in this audience who'd like to do a startup, and yet the first law of doing a startup is you got to have an idea. But if you're having fun, if you're building capabilities, if you're treasuring your time, if you're building your muscle and being hardcore, the good ideas will come to you. As I look at the next phase of my life, I need a new idea, something I'm fired up about, and I'm going through a process very different in some ways, but not very different in others. I'm learning new things, I'm studying new topics. You've done most of the hard work now. You've come back. You've taken your graduate degrees in business at great sacrifice in many cases to all of you and to the families that are here today. You will find something that really switches you on, that fires you up, where you have an idea, where you have the capabilities, where you have the time frame, the tenacity to really go out and make a difference. I wish you well with that, and I wish you well with that particularly today at this commencement from this university. My son just graduated, or going through the graduation process as Jim described here. 1 or 2 classes, that's no big deal. It's really not. In the sense of time, it's no big deal. But what I love about USC is the spirit of this place is consistent with the values that I think are so important for success. And I said this at commencement 3 years ago, I'll say it again. The simple 2-word expression, fight on, is about being hardcore. It's about looking for new ideas. And whether we sat through the commencement this morning, whether you say it, the story of the Trojans in English, or you say it in Greek, or you say it in Latin, it's all about people like you with amazing capability and capacity, and most importantly, the determination to be hardcore and to fight on. Congratulations, have great careers, great lives, and if you need a job, Steve B. at Microsoft.com. Thank you all very much.